Hey, welcome back to another DFO video where today I'll be talking about amplification and basically what the sweetest spot is to get the most value out of your amps. Now, first of all, to start amping, you're gonna go to the Dark Elf Kingdom here. You can just go here, and we're gonna be talking to Clonter. Now, Clonter is the main guy for amping, or I think he's the only guy for amping, for that matter. But if you go to your shop here, you go to other, you can trade in 1,000 clear cubes for these crystallized chaos, and with these crystallized chaos you can start amping. For example, I'm going to plug this in. I'm going to need 11 crystallized chaos to amp one piece at plus 10. Obviously, the crystallized chaos increases or decreases depending on what the current value of your amp is, but essentially that's what you need. You need a lot of clear cubes. Now, clear cubes are going for, like 100 G per clear cube, but once you start amping, these can rack up to a ton of money. And of course, I don't recommend amping for beginners who are just starting out, or just testing alts, playing alts, farming and stuff like that. But if you are like an intermediate plus player, kind of a pro veteran, I would recommend you to actually amp, because that's the next step to min-maxing your character and just improving your character in general. Now, as you may already know, we just got the epic rework, which came with the amplification rework as well. And what the rework is basically it buffed the values of amps. So if we take a look at this chart here, you can see that, for example, a plus 10 amp would be plus 44 stats after it doubled. So plus 88 stats, which is actually insane. Like, the value of amps just went up even more. And by looking at this chart, you can kind of estimate what the sweet spot is for amping. And yes, you are right, it is the plus 8 amp. The plus 8 amp, as you can see after the rework, it goes from plus 7, plus 33 stats, to a plus 8 amp, plus 60 stat, which is basically a double increase of amps. And that is kind of insane. Plus 8 is relatively easier to do than, plus 9, plus 10. But now that if you have a plus 8 amp, it's basically in between a plus 10, plus 11 amp before the rework, which is kind of insane. You can, now you can be kind of OP, kind of compete with the other people who had plus 11 amps before the rework. Now you can basically mimic their damage. But of course, their damage went up now because they got the rework as well. Now, if you want to go even further than a plus 8 amp, the second sweetest spot would be the plus 10 amp. Now, plus 10 is going to be much harder to obtain. It's going to cost you a bit more money, but the trade-off is really nice too. It's plus 88 stat, which basically goes on par with plus 11 before the rework. And I actually recommend just staying at plus 10 amp. Even if you do want to go to plus 11 amp, the difference is not even that big. It's only like 15 stat increase per piece. 15 times 12 pieces, or let's just say 10 pieces. That's only 150 stats, which is not a very big increase, not a noticeable increase, I should say. And the cost benefit, the cost margin from plus 10 to plus 11 amp is extremely high, because you need amplification protection and all sorts of that stuff. Now, which kind of character do you want to amp first is the question, and I would say it would be the satyr. Now, why the satyr? It's because basically, if you have, for example, a no amped piece like this, it has no amplification stats. If you brought it up to a plus 8, which is like this, plus 60 vit in my case, vitality. And if you put it onto like 5 pieces for a plus 8, that's 300 stats on your satyr. Now, 300 stats on your satyr is much, much more better than 300 stats on a DPS, because in late game, end game content, basically every party is going to need a satyr, and 300 stats on a satyr is going to significantly improve the three other members in your party. And what 300 stats does on a Satyr is, I'm going to show you a little clip here with my friend. I have just my basic gear, and I am buffing for, 24,900, right? And then when I add 300 stats on top of that, I'm simulating it in the training room. 300 stats translates into much more than just 300 stats. It's 300 stats on a Satyr, which is now I'm gaining around 900 strength, 900 strength in on my DI buff, and I'm gaining about 100 PMI on my DI buff as well. And that's not even including the buff for my APOC or for my 3A, which is a ridiculous amount of increase just because it's a Satyr. Alright, now I'm going to hop into my F Ranger and show you guys how much 300 strength is going to give to a DPS. Okay, there we go. And then Chain Divider. 14 bill. Okay. Now I'm going to add 300 stats just to see what it looks like. $14 bill, and now I'm doing 15 bill. Yeah, that's around 7%. And of course, this is going to be in solo, where amping does improve your solo damage, just because it's it's not inflated by a Satyr or anyone in your party. And if you notice here, if you take a look at my stats, I have, say, 8.2k strength, and if I add 300, it actually goes up to 87. So that's around 500 strength. And why? Because of that? It's because of my modifiers on my epic gear. Some of my epics do have a percentage of strength increase. You can obviously check here, and as you can see, my strength is like 81%, and that 300 strength is going to be multiplied by these modifiers. So I'm actually getting 500 strength, which if you compare it with my Satyr from before, which is getting 900 strength on his DI, you can see how efficient amping on your Satyr is much more better than a DPS. And obviously on a Satyr, you're going to be buffing three people in your party, which is even more efficient. And that's why you might or may have heard of people saying, amping on a DPS with a huge Satyr is basically negligible, just because of how much strength int the Satyr is going to give you through his buffs. But yeah, that's just a comparison between amping your Satyr first or amping your DPS. Obviously, if you like doing big numbers, all you want to do is just play your DPS and you just like go ham on him. Sure, you can amp your DPS, but in the long run, if you're gonna have like a big Satyr party with you, those amps are going to be basically less than 5% damage increase compared to someone with 0 amps. So I wouldn't bother amping your DPS as much as amping your Satyr in that case. But basically, yeah, amp rework was pretty awesome. It buffed everyone's Satyr and DPS by a lot. And yeah, hopefully this video was informative and choose whether you want to amp or not. But yeah, thanks for watching the video, guys, and until next time.